Today we have Wladimir Van Wilgenburg. He is currently in Erbil. Wladimir is very well known in the region. He has been reporting out of Erbil and from the region for a number of years now. He recently visited northern Syria, Rojava region, including Manbij, and he did some really important reporting from there. Today we are going to talk about Afrin, which also Wladimir has some extensive links and sources. We'll talk about what happened there. Welcome to Ahval TV, Wladimir.
Thank you for inviting me.
Let me go right into my questions. Today, I believe it is 58th day of Afrin operation by Turkish-led forces, including Syrian Arab forces or FSA. It looks like Turkish-led forces took control of Afrin center. Can you give us an update? What do you see? What's happening? What are your sources from the ground tell you?
Well, basically what happened that I think the YPG, they decided to fight for another day. Yesterday and the day before, they evacuated most of the civilians from Afrin. There were still some civilians in Afrin, but most of them, they left to other territories. They went to northern Aleppo in some Shia villages there, and they're hosted there now. So I think the YPG, they thought that this is not going to be like Kobani when there will be an international intervention. They were first hoping for reaching a deal with the Syrian government and Russia to stop the Turkish attacks. But I think they realized that if they would just fight for Afrin as a city, then the city will be completely destroyed. So they thought it's better to withdraw and save civilian lives. And this is why this was a decision by YPG. It's not because now you see some Turkish-backed rebels or Turkey saying, we are not like the Americans or the Russians, we don't destroy cities. This has nothing to do with the Turkish operation. Because if you look to the southeast of Turkey, where there were fighting between the Turkish army and the PKK, a lot of the cities, they were very heavily damaged by the fighting, not like Afrin. So this is different. It's because the YPG themselves, they decided it's better to withdraw and fight for another day.
So some experts I talked in recent days argued that this is basically a collapse of the YPG, and experts like Alexander Clarkson told me the myth that created around the YPG forces that they are not like Assad militias or ISIS, they have superior fighting quality, kind of collapse with the Afrin operation because the YPG did not have American Air Force. Do you agree with this conclusion?
Well, I think this is a sort of a wrong comparison because in Afrin the situation was very different because they were fighting against Turkey, which has the biggest NATO army, one of the biggest army in the world. And Turkey had an air force. If there was no air force, the battle would be much more equal. So for instance, if it was just the rebels and the Turkish army fighting against the YPG, this battle could have taken a long time. But because Turkey, they have the air superiority, that's why the YPG lost. So I think it's not like a myth of superiority because it's very different from the other parts of northern Syria. And in the end, they still managed to resist the Turkish army and the Turkish-backed rebels for almost 2 months. So I don't think it's like a myth that is being broken. So I think it's all about the Air Force. Of course, if there's no Air Force, also the YPG in other areas, they would have more difficulties with fighting ISIS. But this doesn't mean that the YPG myth is broken.
I know it is very difficult to predict right now, but what is your expectation going forward? Do you think, what do you expect from Turkey now that Afrin is taken over? Are they going to continue push back to Tel Rifat and some other Shia villages out there? And after Afrin, do you think the Manbij is the second, or do you think the northern Iraq will be second target of the Turkish forces?
For me, it was always a mystery why the Turkish-backed rebels in Turkey didn't immediately go for Tel Rafat and Minna, because if they took those areas from the beginning, Afrin would be completely cut off immediately. It would be completely isolated from the beginning, and the battle would be over much faster. So I'm a bit surprised that sometimes I'm thinking, but I don't have real proof for this, that Tel Rafat and Menech was never part of this Russian-Turkish deal. That I think it sort of was a no-go zone for them. So I think it's more likely that this area will be in the hands of the Syrian government rather than the Kurds or the Turkish-backed rebels. But we still have to see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's possible that Turkey will also attack these areas. But according to my understanding, the Kurds gave these areas to the Syrian government. This is not 100% confirmed yet. So if there's no Tel Rafat or Menech operation, we have to see what's going to happen in Manbij, because I think Manbij necessarily is not going to fall by military operations. It could also, there's still negotiations between America and the Turks. And I don't think until now that America is going to say, okay, maybe Manbij is a discussion point, because even the Americans said that they made some mistakes. They made some promises to Turkey that were not like, they still allowed sort of the Kurds or the SDF to go to Manbij. So there's still possibility that the Americans will give up Manbij, or there will be some sort of deal over Manbij. But the rest of eastern Syria, I think this is, I don't think Turkey can attack these areas, because I think that America will stay there and they will not give these areas up so easily.
This is going to be my last question, but before that, experts like Fabrice Balange and Stephen Heidemann, both of them think that, and told me on these programs on Ahval TV, that American forces will not stay in Syria for a long time for various reasons. Do you agree that the American forces will be short-lived in northern Syria with Syrian Kurd alliance with the Syrian Kurds?
I think it's very difficult to say this because what is a short term? Like, it could still be 1 or 3 years. So I think at some point maybe the Americans will be leaving, but at the same time we should not forget what happened in Afghanistan. The Americans will say they will leave Afghanistan. They're still there. The Americans wanted to leave Iraq, and they're still there. So I think it's a little bit premature to say that Americans will leave or not. 100% they will stay these few years, at least 1 or 3 years they will still be there. So I don't think you can immediately conclude that they will leave. But I think the Trump, at least the American president, he's saying that he wants to leave. But it might be not so easy for the Americans to leave, because, you know, there's still ISIS in Deir ez-Zor. The Syrian civil war is still not over, and there's a lot of problems. So we'll have to see if the Americans leave on the short term or not. But I think they could be drawn into this mess of the Syrian conflict.
My final question. Couple of actually my followers asked this question today, and it came to be really interesting. We have seen these forces from Raqqa and other places, Syrian Kurds, STF forces, you know, declaring that they are going to Afrin to help fight against Turkish forces, and also some pro-Assad or pro-Iranian militias. What happened to them?
Well, I was not in Afrin recently, so it's very difficult for me to say. There's 100% proof that the Syrian government-backed forces, they went to Afrin. So I think most of them, they actually withdrew to the Assad-held areas in the Shaba area, in Nubal and Zahra especially. So I think they have withdrawn from Afrin. But the forces from Raqqa, I haven't seen much proof that there were actually Arab forces from Raqqa fighting inside Afrin themselves, because I didn't see any statements from the YPG that they showed this person died in the fight in Afrin.
I see.
So I haven't seen much proof of that. So I'm not really sure if they really went to Afrin or not, but I'm 100% sure that Kurds from several parts of northern Syria, from other parts who were not from Afrin, they went to Afrin and fight. Like, that's 100% confirmed. But if really Arabs from Raqqa also fought, or from Deir ez-Zor also fought in Afrin, it's very difficult to say.
Thank you so much, Wladimir. This was a very good recap of today when the Turkish forces declared that they took over Afrin center. You will write us some update as well for Ahval, and looking forward to it. Thank you for coming on today.
You're welcome.